I have mixed feelings about Ironheart, and a lot more positive feelings than I expected. This show has some good moments. However, it does have a gargantuan-sized plot hole. But let's start off with the good things about this show. And starting off is Riri Williams. Dominique Thorne does a great job, and in comparison to her role in Wakanda Forever, I felt like I cared much more about the character here than I did in that movie. Here, she felt a lot more grounded, a lot more real, and I mean, of course, she's the title character, so she is going to have a role in this show, whereas in Wakanda Forever, she kind of felt forced in. Here, she feels natural, she feels in her element, and I actually enjoyed watching her. I think even in this iteration of the show, I like her better than I do in the comics. In the comics, she felt like she didn't really earn anything, felt a lot more like an Iron Man knockoff, but in this, I think she feels a lot more... She's a lot more like a character. She has development, she goes through problems, she earns things. And that was my biggest issue if you saw my trailer review, and that my biggest concern and worry. But she dispels that very quickly with these 3 episodes. And I really enjoy this emotional journey that she's on. And I'm really excited to see how they wrap it up, as next week are the last 3 episodes, which I gotta say, I love. 3 episodes in the first week, 3 episodes second week, and we're done. I love that. But this emotional journey and this trauma that we see build up in her with her stepfather and her best friend being murdered in front of her, and how we see the culmination of this hour with the denial, the putting it off, and it being forcibly thrust back into her life, and then how she comes to term with that, and then you add on all the emotional trauma and fatigue that you get with joining the Hood's gang, and especially with the end of episode 3. And I like how in this show that we see very quickly, and much earlier than I expected, we see Riri deal with problems without the suit. She forcibly chose to go without it, to go into the field with bare bones tech and deal with a real life situation, a real life scrap, without the help of the iron suit. I think that was very well done to establish that early, and establish that she is able to handle herself in a lot of situations, but is a little bit weaker in a physical fight. I think that's good, because you can't be good at everything. And that was one thing in the comics, she was good at everything. And I like how here we see flaws, and we see that she struggles with some situations. I loved that. I don't think she's a perfect character, or it's a perfect show by any means, but I think it's good. I really enjoyed it, and a big reason is because of Riri Williams. And I think one thing I really enjoy seeing is the suit. The suit, not a fan. It's clunky. I'm not a huge fan of the color scheme, but it showcases Riri's inefficiencies. How she made it with what she had available, and it's big, has a lot of necessary parts, and that goes even further into the motivation for building the suit. How, again, she saw these 2 dear people in her life murdered in front of her, and she then comments about how she wants to make this suit so that first responders, police officers, firefighters can get to the scene quicker to prevent another tragedy like that. But she went a little bit overboard, and it's not necessarily streamlined as the Tony Stark Iron Man suit is. But also with that, it does feel a little bit repetitive of the Ultron storyline with a suit of armor around the world to be peacekeepers. It's very similar, where now we're just adding in the human element, where again, we're going to have villains use this for bad purposes. That's one thing I don't like about it, is the repetitive storyline, but at least it's from a little bit of a different perspective. And I can't believe that Marvel used essentially Clippy from Microsoft. For those who don't remember, he was this little, there's a paperclip, animated paperclip with eyes, who was a little bit of like an AI for Microsoft. And they did the same thing here for MIT with a pencil. That was not on my 2025 bingo card. Honestly, it was really funny, and I laughed about it. And for people who are saying that it's a little bit unrealistic for Riri to build this suit, because, I mean, again, she's not Tony Stark, you gotta remember, Tony Stark publicly has had this suit for 20 years. In the world of technology, that's outdated, and even though people cannot build it up to that standards because it is Tony Stark, you can still replicate it. And with a genius like Riri, yeah, this makes total sense for her being able to replicate this. And with her being able to replicate everything, and a big part of the Iron Man suit is Jarvis and the AI, her developing the unintentional AI of Natalie, I did enjoy. I am glad they kept that from the comics, as it does bring in extra heart here and extra emotional growth for Riri, as she has to forcibly deal with the trauma. And I think it's a very interesting take on the AI debate, where they essentially hinted at giving this AI a soul, when in the real world we're calling AI soulless, how it's stealing from others. I think how they're taking it and trying to make AI into this best friend is a little bit weird, when, in my opinion, it's a tool that should be used. Even though Jarvis is a friend to Tony Stark, Tony always knew he was a tool. Whereas here, that's very much blurred. One thing with this is Natalie's always portrayed as being shot out by light, by somewhere near Riri, whether it be a suit, necklace, projector, whatever. There are a few weird scenes when, like, Riri's clearly facing the other way, yet Natalie still didn't move. I don't know why they made such blatant errors like that, or why they even made that choice to begin with, as you're very much constricting yourself. But honestly, it's nitpicky, but one thing I did notice. And then the villain, Hood. He's what drew me into this show. The supernatural. I like his power set, and I like in this show how they showcased it with, like, the yellow lines of the bullets. It looks very similar to comics, and I'm a huge fan of that. I liked him from a young age, in one moment in particular from, like, the Marvel Heroes game from, like, late 2000s, early 2010s. Put a comment down below if you remember what game I'm talking about. I love that RPG. It was so good. I love the Hood pretty much ever since that. Anthony Ramos does a great job. I love his emotional range and how we saw what happens when he loses an anchor, and how he's starting to unravel and why he's doing what he's doing. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I never bought that Robin Hood act. That didn't make any sense. And one thing I thought was really well done was when Riri and Natalie were talking about the Hood, when they're talking about Parker, and you see a bunch of posters behind her with just Faust. Just the word Faust and a person you couldn't really see. That was brilliant foreshadowing for what's to come. I cannot wait to see what they're going to continue to do with the Hood. And I'm curious to see how far they're going to go with the Hood. If we are actually going to get Mephisto, as he has been a rumored, all but confirmed casting since 2021 with Sacha Baron Cohen. And I'm really excited to see that. I think he would do a great job. Take this with a grain of salt, as I know during WandaVision, everyone had the Mephisto craze, where, like, they see him in the wallpaper, he's going to be next episode, all of that stuff. We're supposed to be getting him in episode 5. Take it with a grain of salt. Who knows? But one surprising thing about this show is a supporting character they introduced who ended up being the son of Iron Man's first villain, Ezikial Stane. I really did not expect that, but I am super intrigued about it. I love how we saw his tech genius, and how as soon as he just touched the metal, there was just a spark in him, and he went off. He wrote all these blueprints, had all these ideas. And I love how we were able to see that in the creative process flow, how he built this friendship with Riri and put his trust in her. And I'm curious to see if we're going to get him to be similar to his comic counterpart. In the comics, he does build all these bioweapons, very similar to what he's doing right now. And I'm curious to see if Riri's betrayal, or it is just betrayal. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Her betrayal is what's going to send him down a similar path. And I'm kind of here for it. I don't know if they have plans for multiple seasons of this show, as it kind of seems like Marvel didn't have too much faith in this show, as again with the release schedule, the limited marketing, it's a bit weird that they didn't promote this more. So I'm kind of thinking they may not have much faith, but why would you put Ezikial Stane in here, the Hood, potentially Mephisto, in only 6 episodes if you don't have more planned? I have a theory. I'll get into it a little bit more later after I get into the plot hole. There is just such a massive, gargantuan plot hole in this show that is evident from, like, the first scene. So Riri, her motivation is she wants to be seen. And to do that, she wants to build this Iron Man-like suit. And to do so, she needs resources. She needs money. She just wants to be heard, doesn't want to be bogged down by a menial job at some industry. Well, she's just going to be essentially another name. Well, she doesn't get to be creative. But I feel like that makes absolutely no goddamn sense. She was introduced in Wakanda Forever, where, as far as I'm aware, she is good friends with the Queen of Wakanda, who is such a proponent for tech. And Wakanda is the technological king of the Marvel world. So why don't you go study in Wakanda where you can have specialized classes, hands-on experience, or just go talk to the queen and say, hey, you see what I can do? I'm looking for someone just to help fund my tech so I can do what I want to do, or even just join Wakanda's technological efforts, as that's very worthwhile and very much up her alley. It just makes no sense why she seeks out her own path in this when she can have her own path just using Wakanda's resources, that those are available to her. I don't know why she's working for the Hood, getting all this money when she has access to all of Wakanda's resources. Again, I'm pretty sure in Wakanda Forever, she was on good terms with the Queen. I mean, she helped save her, took down Namor. I think offering her a job in the lab, doing research, building suits, better protective gear. That seems like what she wants. I get it. That's not the story they want to tell. And if you look past that plot hole, it's a good show. There are still some issues, as I mean, how many people do you know that wear an iron suit? So if someone sees it on these very public robberies that's all over the news, it's pretty easy to tell who one of the culprits are. I mean, she crash landed in the first episode. People know, she's been in the papers. People know her on the street. You have a goddamn target on your back. Why would you wear the iron suit out on these heists? And not to mention, I don't get why the Hood necessarily needs it. I get it makes it convenient, but you had a plan when you didn't have it. Why would you necessarily add this extra complexity and again, this extra target? I also think the crew that the Hood gathered, they're not bad by any means, but they don't really stand out. I think there are great characters and they're just not part of it. They're kind of just a means to an end and they're just kind of there. And the whole goal with like they're getting these companies to sign these contracts, signing away parts of their company. Edward's the lawyer and he's not here, but I'm fairly certain he would tell me that these contracts will not hold up in court. They're signed under duress and there's absolutely no way these are going to hold up. So what's the point? And I get we're probably going to find out in the next 3 episodes, but I feel like it's just in the best interest of the tech companies just to sign it and just go to court. You know exactly who's robbing you. Go for it. I mean, even the second robbery, they knew him by name. I don't get why that's really a thing they're going with. And in the 3rd episode for that second heist, they boast about these super high-tech metal detectors. And yet, they all have these metallic earpieces. Riri has this metal necklace that projects Natalie. And the character Slug is covered in chains and metal and bolts. Like, I get, like, there's, like, a certain threshold level, but I feel like that's definitely an anomaly that would be registered, especially if the tiny laser cutter that was just poking out, like, so very, very little was registered. That didn't really make too much sense to me. Yeah, the show did start a little bit slow, but episode 3 definitely picked up, and I'm really excited to see how they end this. I am very thrilled with their release schedule. Let me know what your thoughts are about Ironheart, as I'm having a lot more fun than I expected. And one theory I do have, and I was talking about this before I saw these 3 episodes, and I'm kind of curious if it's going to come to fruition. And there's no evidence for it, but no evidence against it yet. If they're not planning on doing a second season, just having her be her own thing, like, the biggest question was, how does this fit into the MCU? Why are we getting this show? But this show, as well as the Mephisto casting confirmation and the Blade movie, were all confirmed relatively around the same time, and the Blade movie was supposed to come out around this time, if not a bit before. And we know Blade was supposed to be a stepping stone for the Midnight Suns project. I think Ironheart was also part of that initiative, as you are dealing with Mephisto, who is essentially the devil. He is the devil of the Marvel Universe. Characters like Spider-Man and the Hood make deals with him all the time. He is one of the big bads of this universe and is a persistent villain or a character in the Midnight Suns. And I think especially with how hard they're going in with the supernatural with a villain like the Hood, that having Ironheart be a member of the Midnight Suns could be something they go with, depending how this show does, as they are still moving forward with a Midnight Suns project. Yes, I do still think Blade should be part of it, but obviously with all the drama relating with that, I don't think they're necessarily going to go with that too much or introduce him in that movie. But using this project to see if a Midnight Suns project is viable, I think it's a good idea, and I think Riri Williams would be a great addition to it. So I always love the balance of the technological and the supernatural. I think it would be a great balance. Overall, this show's good. It's not great. but it's not bad either. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and let me know what you enjoyed most about the show. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can check out our X-Men video we just recently put out about who should be on the Marvel Studios X-Men roster for 2028.